Okay, our budget session will reconvene. Amendment number 9, add $30,000 to the coroner's budget to fund converting a part-time deputy coroner position to a full-time position. Supervisor Eisen.
I move to approve resolution number 227-102013, amendment number 9. Add $30,000 to the coroner's budget to fund converting the part-time deputy coroner position to a full-time position.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I obtained Paul's permission to say this, but seeing his name and my name on the same resolution may seem a little like the odd couple, but if we are not in violation of state statutes, we're at least at odds with it. So I fully support this amendment and intend to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to share with the board some of the history of this briefly. Mr. Busby came before the Judiciary Committee early and asked for increase in cremation fees to fund this deputy. The whole thing of the deputy was predicated on raising the cremation fees. The committee had some concerns and questions and asked for further information that was not forthcoming the second time, but then the third time there was another story. I don't remember exactly, but when we met with the county executive, I'm fully confident that my memory serves me well here. The discussion was about the need for a full-time deputy, but we never defined what full-time is. And what Mr. Busby said the other day, what I heard was he'd be a full-time deputy that is not there now as full-time. And, you know, it's not like an hourly 40-hour work week here, so I don't know how you would define full-time versus part-time. But if this is approved, I would ask that, you know, the time be noted and documented to see how much time this individual actually works. And I just think that with that, you know, the board can make up its mind what to do. But there's a little history of how this happened. It wasn't the ideal way to go about it, but nothing ever is, I guess.
Supervisor Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very concerned about this position request. I think that the county executive had come up with an excellent compromise by increasing the per diems to be paid out to the individuals that are at the beck and call of the coroner to take care of the business when he's not available. And I don't know if we actually really need this position at this point in time as a full-time position. It may be the case, but I think it again should go through the proper channels of working with the personnel department and do the study of what the job would consist of, what the hours are, who's, you know, how is there any accountability on this person, etc. I have a lot of questions, and I don't think we should just be adding this position at this point in time. If it does make sense to do it, we can do it down the road, either sometime next year at a board meeting or at next year's budget meeting. I just don't have enough information in regards to this. Plus, it has been somewhat handled already with what the compromise that came up from the county executive's office. So at this point in time, I can't support this.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to explain to my fellow supervisors that this is an issue that was brought before the committee, and I don't want to to have this issue obfuscated, it's very clear. Under state statute, Chapter 59.35, Parent 1, Wisconsin statutes requires a coroner to appoint some proper person who is a resident of the county to be chief deputy coroner. That's the law. It also states further that in case of a vacancy in the office of coroner, that the chief deputy coroner shall in all things and with like liabilities and penalties execute the duties of the office until the vacancy is filled as provided by law. Furthermore, under Chapter 59.34, Parent 1, Parent B, the coroner shall, when there is no sheriff or undersheriff organized for judicial purposes, exercise all of the powers and duties of sheriff until a sheriff is elected or appointed and qualified. In addition, the coroner is the third in line behind the sheriff and the deputy sheriff in responsibility, constitutional responsibility for operating the sheriff's office. And if there is a problem with the sheriff, he is the person charged with taking the situation as in control. In addition, I think it's been documented to the Committee of Jurisdiction that the workload of the coroner's office, the number of events, the specification under the law that the coroner must attend to inspection of the corpse for any cremated remains, ultimate for cremation. And I think it's apparent that in a county with a population of 167,700, the responsibility to employ a full-time chief deputy coroner is pretty clear. It's pretty clear to me. And with this particular action, I'm asking to supplement those dollars that have been allocated in the budget, which would amount to an additional $30,000. $30,000 will buy us a full-time chief deputy coroner who can fill in according to the specifications of the Human Resources Department. When I had submitted the original amendment, there was a provision that indicated that the position would need to be created and administered through human resources, and that ultimately the coroner would be able to select the most qualified of the candidates for that position. It doesn't appear in the corporate council's revision for consideration of the county board. And furthermore, this position at $30,000 would be funded not from the tax levy to skew our balance, but from the self-funded health insurance fund, which to the tune of in excess of $3 million is available. $30,000 is a very small price to pay for a position that has become much more visible with the increased drug activity, the deaths, the near deaths as a consequence of that activity. And for these reasons, I believe it's very meritorious for you to approve this, and I think that your constituents would approve of your actions approving this full-time position. Thank you.
Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe I'm hearing okay right now. And in reading, listening to all of the statutes that we talked about, all the different numbers, I didn't hear anything in there that said we should have a full-time chief deputy. And I think that is, now we're back to the point of do we just want to have one or do we really need one? Thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard.
I have a couple questions for Mr. Busby. Did I understand yesterday when you gave your presentation that you were okay with your, I'll call them gentlemen that assist you, that you have an assistant right now?
Yes, deputies right now.
And you're okay with that assistant?
I am okay with a part-time situation, except, and
Okay.
I'll clarify. Wisconsin legislators are entertaining a revision of the 979 statutes, whereas every coroner, medical examiner, deputy coroner, deputy medical examiner will be certified and licensed. It's hard to get part-time people out to get certified and licensed, so therefore it is necessity to eventually think about treating the coroner's office like every other place, have full-time workers can pass on the information accordingly and handle the duties accordingly, and be trained. It's hard to train part-time people, and we have been very fortunate in Winnebago County in the last 17 years that we've got them trained and trained properly and not an embarrassment to the county. They've done a very good job as part-time employees, but we need to start looking back and going into the 21st century. The full-time people will become a necessity down the line, I believe, to handle the certifications and licensing part of this thing. Excuse me just a second.
$25 fine. Your deputies will take over.
Sorry. Bill the account. So there was a little misconception, I think, on why it was submitted with bulk cremations and stuff, but I'll get to that if there's another question on that.
And so just to back up your answer, do you think you're going to lose the gentleman that you have right now if this becomes a full-time position?
If something better came along for him, I don't doubt that he has an option of leaving. I know he likes doing.
Okay with that?
Well, no, I'd be pretty bad situation if he left, actually. And he's a very qualified man right now. If he would be the next one, I suspect that he would be a good candidate for it, but there's nothing, we'd have to work with personnel and everything else.
You'll probably lose him. Okay.
To clarify one thing on Mr. Ringland, I did submit, because I've always had to fight for everything that I've tried to get through, a potential of covering the cost of a part-time or full-time person going from part-time to full-time, and showed that I did a study on the cremation and signing of death certificates. That was handled, and there was money available to do this at no cost to the county and actually get money back into a positive flow into my budget. Another $20,000 would have been off of my total tax levy if we would have done with the cremation thing. And it was with that I brought to the judiciary firsthand when I started explaining why we needed to start going with a full-time position.
Thank you.
Supervisor Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for Mr. Busby. It has been insinuated that we are in violation of state law. Do you agree with that? And
No.
If your answer is yes, I'd like to know why we've been in violation for so many years.
We are not in violation of state law. There are other smaller counties that pretty much have part-time coroners, but I think we've exceeded that in Winnebago County because of the deaths and everything else. So no, we are not in violation of the law with part-time people.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you. I have the greatest respect for our coroner, but just to say that we're going to have a job description and Human Services is going to look at it, I don't think that's quite true. Is it not true that you already have a deputy And that person is going to become the full-time deputy. It's not where we're going to put this job description out and people can apply. You've already picked who you
No.
want.
Well,
Is that yes or no?
I have a chief deputy
Yes or
in
no?
place. I have a chief deputy in place. It doesn't mean that he is the next chief deputy. We have to go through personnel, the job description and everything else.
Because another thing that came out in the meeting with the county executive is you wanted to become a medical examiner. You said that.
I don't have a problem with that.
And you also said that making this a deputy coroner into a full-time position allows you to train somebody else for your job if you choose not to run again.
That might be a statement.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just
Somebody
for
else would have to run
clarification.
if it was coroner,
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
There have been no promises made to anybody
No, I-
because we would have to go through
I
personnel.
understand.
Well, can I make a little remark? You know how the promises go about the coroner, right? When it's promised that you'll be the next coroner? Supervisor Brennan.
Little humor there, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following up there, I hadn't caught that right away when earlier when we're looking at utilizing self-funded health insurance fund balance to fund this. I guess from what I heard, it sounds like we're justifying the means to use the funds, and I've seen that happen way too many times in a level of government above us, where they utilize recycling funds to do something that the DNR wants to accomplish, or funds are being utilized because it's somewhat related to this fund. I think that is a very, very slippery slope that we don't need to start going down on. I really now cannot support that for that unless that funding mechanism were to be changed, and I have never been very supportive of the crematory fees. It's just another death tax in my mind, and we pay enough stuff when somebody passes away as it is, and I've never agreed to that fee. I am very concerned after hearing that the potential changes that could be coming at the coroner has related to in regards to qualifications and whatnot. And I know many, many years ago we had a conversation about eliminating the coroner and going to a regional medical examiner, and maybe it's time that we do nothing here at this point in time and we revisit this. And maybe it is time to look at removing the coroner position from this, because this is apparently getting to be a very highly specialized position, and the people that are involved with it. We may need to have several full-time employees. If we can do it on a regional basis, it may make perfectly good sense to do this. However, at this point in time, I can't support this. This is just not acceptable.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to take exception to the observation. I do not insinuate that the law requires a full-time deputy. I simply state that the law requires that one of the principal duties of the coroner is to appoint a chief deputy. And when we have a community, a county with 167,000 population, facing the kinds of activities that are very apparent, the need for a full-time assistant, a chief deputy is there. The sheriff has a chief deputy. The county clerk has a chief deputy clerk. And furthermore, when it is presented that the coroner will be in effect training a successor, I don't think that that's very bad a bad thing, because our county clerk was a 20-year employee of the county in the clerk's office before being elected. Our sheriff was a 25-year employee of the sheriff's department, professional career employee, before being elected. This particular county has found a very good combination of being able to reach into the richness of its professional staff with people who come forward with the kinds of skills that provide maximum benefits to the citizenry of the county. And I am concerned, or I don't see where it would be objectionable to have $30,000 from a $3 million slush fund applied to the important position of having a full-time chief deputy, particularly when there is very well accepted that there is a drug problem within the community, that the pressures upon the coroner's office to present educational, to present assistance to the municipalities in dealing with the issues of overdosing is so prevalent in the news today. And for those reasons, I think it is a very reasonable outlay to have the security of having a full-time chief deputy within the coroner's office. It's certainly a public safety issue and of importance to our citizenry. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very quickly, I was telling my colleague, Mr. Widener, at a break that one of the things I've noticed in the 10 months I've been on the board is there are a lot of resolutions that ask for spending money because it'd be nice to have, or we should do it, or very little cost accountability. And I think this is one of the areas I would certainly need more valid information on precisely what this person would do, how this person would be compensated, and how this person would fit in the overall plan of the coroner's department. To say that we need one and it's only going to cost $30,000 simply isn't acceptable, because, like I said, it's always nice to have things, but I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant of what our returns on our spending are. Thank you.
Supervisor Engelbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the same reservation that Supervisor Brennan expressed in taking money out of the self-funded health insurance fund to cover a salaried position. I can't imagine we're going to continue taking this money out of the self-funded insurance fund year after year after year. At some point, it belongs on the tax levy and as part of the budget for that department. And taking out of the self-funded health fund just because it looks like there's a lot of money in there, I don't think this is a good idea. I think if we're going to establish this position, it should be part of a department budget, and it should be included in a budget that we continue as part of the tax levy instead of raiding some fund for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things I was going to say was just what Supervisor Engelbert just said. To pull it out of a fund when you're paying an employee, it's not like buying a piece of equipment or fixing a roof where it's a one-time deal. Another part of it is I can understand what the coroner's going through with having an on-call type of job where you respond to things. I certainly am familiar with that. But here's one thing I thought of is, from what I'm hearing in this conversation, is half of this position will be paid for already what that individual is getting, and that there's between 5 and 8, I believe the numbers were, of other deputy coroners it would seem to me like those positions would be lessened by a lot. We probably are already paying out this amount of money, but there certainly are some questions. Supervisor Brennan raised some good questions on this. I think that this is a real possibility, but these things need to be looked at, and I think that if this is all organized correctly, that this wouldn't cost the county any more money than what it is now, but just needs to be put in place.
Thank you. Okay, there are no other questions coming up, so we'll vote on our little iPad. Aye if you approve to add 30,000, no if you don't want to add it. That has failed. Amendment number 10, delete $500,000 for parking lot reconstruction from Tri-County Ice Arena budget. Supervisor Roll. Oop, I'm sorry, I was deep in thought.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move for the approval of Amendment 10 to Resolution Number 227-102-013. I would like to start by saying I started attending the Tri-County Rec Association board meeting about 2 years ago. During that time, I have become convinced, at least in my opinion, that as Winnebago County is the owners of that facility, we are in need of new management. I have heard from time to time, well, these folks have been there for 30 years, or thereabouts. That doesn't mean it's right. The Packers season isn't halfway over yet. If they wound up 8-8 this year, and if they wound up 7-9 next year, and 4-12 the year after, and 5-11 year after that, I would be willing to bet $1 that we would have new management. If you don't do things right, you should have to account for your actions, and they haven't done so. Some of you, I'm sure, are aware, I've talked to a number of you, that the budget that they approved, they being the Tri-County Rec Association, the budget that they approved just a few weeks ago shows revenue of $312,000. It shows a net profit of $28. I mentioned that to one individual, and he says, yeah, but they're a nonprofit. I would like to point out that, yes, so is Harvard University a nonprofit. But I looked this one up. They currently have $30 billion, that's with a B, $30 billion in their endowment fund. I contend that if this facility had been run properly over the last 30 years, we would have money, they would have money, to fix the parking lot. For those of you who are not aware, those of you that are not aware, I would like to point out that the county executive is drafting for the facilities committee an RFP so that we can go out and look for individuals and or companies to manage this facility and do a good job managing it. One of the entities interested currently manages 3 or 4 ice facilities in northeast Wisconsin, and from what I understand, they do a very good job. So it's not like we're just sitting here doing nothing. We're trying to find out who we can find that'll do a good job, a better job than what we've been afforded the last 30 years. Before I forget it, I have this in big capital letters. I know there's been some confusion about additions and deletions and do we vote yay or nay or so forth. I am urging you to vote yes for this amendment. A yes would mean that we're deleting this $500,000. The next item I would like to point out, and I made notes of this during the morning session, when we were talking about a $150,000 building, one of the supervisors suggested that this was a way to circumvent the normal procedures and going through committee and bringing it to this board and letting people vote on it. I read an article about 10, 12 days ago in the newspaper, an interview with the county executive, wherein he stated the reason he was putting the $500,000 in the budget, because it's the only way I can get it through. Talk about circumventing normal procedures. At this point, the last comment I have comes from the current lease agreement that Winnebago County has with the Tri-County Rec Association. It's one sentence long, and the first word is corporation. I would like to point out that by way of definition, the corporation is the Tri-County Rec Association. And with that, I will quote one sentence. Quote, corporation shall be specifically responsible for prompt, diligent maintenance and repair of the parking lot on the leased premises. Unquote. Therefore, I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm a little confused. I'm reading this. It says delete $500,000 for a parking lot, and the discussion we had was the management of the facility and the fact that we should be looking at other people to manage it. So I guess I don't really see anything here that says that we shouldn't be spending money for a parking lot. If we get somebody new, that may be a reason for getting it. But once again, we're using something here and going off on a tangent for what we're really talking about doing here. So I guess I'm not sure why we're doing it this way. We should be talking about the management situation as a management situation and not sneaking it around as people are talking about in a different situation. So I really have a problem with this. I have a problem with the way we do it. I was accused of trying to sneak around this, and to me, this is exactly what we're doing again. So I would say that either we should drop it or we should vote no. Thank you.
Supervisor Warnke.
Okay, for the new supervisors who should know the history of what's happening here, Mr. Rowe and I brought in a resolution, I don't know, about a year or so ago, it's been a long time, to divest Winnebago County of the ice arena. That passed. And as you know, it was vetoed. We worked hard on this whole thing to get new people in there. We had 2 people who were interested in taking this over. And the county executive vetoed this thing. In other words, as far as I'm concerned, he just picked up his ball and went home and says, I don't care what you guys are going to do. We're going to take this thing over. And so Winnebago County, that was the first mistake, was by us taking the whole thing over, because Allegheny sold it to us for $1. And that was probably the best investment they ever made in their lives, because they went into this whole thing as a partner, but they just said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. So they paid the insurance, and that was it. So then after all this fighting and listening to people who came here who wanted to manage it, Mr. Harris vetoed it. So it's back to square one. Now he's coming in and he wants $500,000 to do a parking lot. And also there's problems with that building. The floor is heaving. It has an outdated system for making ice is they use Freon. They're not even supposed to be using that system. The floor is heaving all over. It's dangerous. There's going to be more expenses down the line. We had people who wanted to take it over, but it didn't happen. And now all of a sudden he wants $500,000. Well, what's going to be next? So I'm just telling you, we need to divest out of this thing. I'm not trying to kill ice. I'm trying to get somebody to run it at a thing where it's going to be successful, where they can use volunteers. They use volunteers at Fond du Lac, and it works good. Matter of fact, Fond du Lac gave them their arena, and they ripped it down and built a new one, all by volunteers. The only thing that they didn't own was the property on the fairgrounds at the Fond du Lac, and everything is going fine. So I urge you not to give them this $500,000. And let's go back to the original thing of getting somebody else in there to run it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've only been on the county board for 2 years, so my history with the ice facility does not go back as far as some others here. But what I've heard since being on the county board is that there's a number of supervisors that really just want to get rid of the ice arena. They don't feel that the county should be involved in the recreation business related to ice arenas. We've heard here tonight that this is about the management of the ice arena, not the ice arena itself. But then we've also heard that the building itself is in disrepair. So we've heard that the management doesn't make a profit, but it's got a parking lot that causes people personal injuries. We've heard that in the past, we've heard that they have a hard time getting vendors to commit to events there because of the condition of the parking lot. Yet the management can't make a profit for whatever reason, because it's poorly managed, is what we're hearing. But what I heard when I got on the county board here with the last budget session was that this was really about the ice rates, that the rates for ice rental was too high. And that was one of the biggest concerns with the management, was that the ice rates keep rising. So I'm hearing multiple reasons, and I guess I don't understand why anybody would want to take over a building, an ice arena, if the parking lot is garbage and the building is garbage. Then somebody wants it for $1 and they think they're going to turn it around with volunteers under those conditions. I hear multiple things here, and I'm sure every supervisor here has heard all of these multiple things, and is probably trying to figure it out for themselves. I guess from my perspective, we own that building, we own that property, and we're not going to be able to get rid of it. We could give it away for $1, but the last offer we saw for that, it was going to be given back to us after it failed within 10 years. That was the terms of that offer. Is that after 10 years, within 10 years, if the company that was the volunteers that were going to take it over decided that they didn't want to run it anymore, it would revert back to us. And we would have the dilapidated building with no, a gravel parking lot at that point. So we own that building. I understand that the contract says something about the tenants are supposed to maintain and repair. It doesn't say that they're supposed to replace the parking lot, but maintaining and repairing. Personally, if a landlord expected their tenant to replace the driveway, I would find that to be a suspect rental agreement. So whatever it is with the contract, we own that building. I think we should replace the parking lot, see what happens. Maybe that'll turn things around for the facility. I've heard from lots of people as we went through previous budget sessions talking about how much they care about that facility. So let's take care of it. It's ours. That's my opinion on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to speak about the parking lot reconstruction itself, not this other part of it. $500,000, I did some checking as to what this is supposed to cover. This would cover pulverizing and relay and repave. There's two main reasons why that parking lot is in the shape it's in. Of course, not counting the age of it, but lack of drainage, and lack of maintenance. Let's start with maintenance. There's a maintenance agreement in there that the current association should be maintaining it properly. I can assure you that has not been done. There's been very little maintenance over the years. And for drainage, that thing is just flat. To come in there and just repave it, we'd have a nice looking parking lot for about 3 years. And some years after that, because of no drainage, we'd have the same mess we have now. I believe that's a poor investment on $500,000. To do that properly, there should be a drainage plan, probably have to have storm sewer, retention. You probably just about double this cost to do that. But to spend $500,000 and not address the drainage is just wrong. If this would pass, I would certainly hope that part of the condition would be that some sort of maintenance plan gets drawn up, maybe by the highway commissioner, and an agreement done with this group that they have to maintain it properly after this and not just ignore it so that the taxpayers have to repave it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my view, this is not a question of need. It's really a question of direction for the ice arena. There's a clear need for a parking lot. We've known that for a very long time. If we really wanted to invest in the ice arena, let's face it, we would have done it 10 years ago. We've been talking about this ever since I've been on the county board, and my understanding is even longer than that. But the real question is what direction we are going with the ice arena. In my opinion, that's the bottom line. How can you invest money without having a clear direction? I'm uncomfortable going forward and investing money without knowing what that clear direction is. We've been talking about the ice arena a lot over the last year. First, we talked about essentially purchasing it from Outagamie County for $1, and we did that. I was concerned about that because I thought we lost some leverage by doing that in terms of options going forward with what we could do with the ice arena. Then we considered specifically divesting and selling it. I was supportive of that. I think we had some options on the table, but we decided to go a different direction. So now we effectively own it, and we retain sole ownership of it. Despite that ownership, in terms of direction, the bottom line comes down to two things: the management of the ice arena and our commitment to that management and that ice arena. When we look at the management and our relationship with it right now, we've had a lease now for approximately 30 years. But we currently essentially are doing one-year leases at a time. It's like having a tenant and working month to month. We have no long-term commitment on our end or, in fact, on the tenant's end going forward. And what does that result in? That results in uncertainty for all of us. Now, I heard the comment about an RFP, and that's a very important piece for me, because that was one thing I was going to bring up. I think it's very important that we have an RFP to look at our options for management going forward. Without that going forward, I am uncomfortable investing further in this ice arena. Once again, we go forward and make further commitments. I would argue just as when we purchased it for $1 from Outagamie County, we lost a little leverage there. I would argue that if we go forward now and continue to reinvest in the ice arena without taking care of those management issues, we lose additional leverage going forward. We lose additional options going forward with this ice arena. Concern was brought up over the last year when we talked about the ice arena a number of times in regards to the management, that if there was not some sort of change, we would see reduction in use at that ice arena. And in fact, that's what we're already seeing, and that's what I fear we'll continue to see going forward. My understanding is that the ice use time for the Fox Valley Youth Hockey has gone down 14% now over the past year. My fear is that will only continue going forward unless we address our management issues. If we do an RFP and we consider other management opportunities, one of two things will happen. Either we'll have renewed commitment and vision from our current management, or we'll have new management to address the issues that we've been concerned about all along. The other issue is cost. Because the reality is, in my opinion, I agree with the individual who said if we own it, then we should maintain it. However, I would argue if we're going to put $500,000 to this parking lot, at least for me, that means I'm committed in this facility going forward, which means I'm committed in further infrastructure costs for this facility. And it's a 40-year-old facility. So I'm not talking about $500,000. I'm talking about millions of dollars of commitment if we're looking at all the other infrastructure costs that, let's face it, will be needed in the next few years. This is the first stop. So I'm uncomfortable taking that first step until we've addressed the underlying issues with the ice arena that we've been talking about all of the past year. In my opinion, this is kind of like a young married couple that's been having marital problems, and that they decide that the best option to solve their marital problems is to buy a house or to have a child. Well, that's only going to worsen the issue. That's only going to limit our options going forward. The options going forward for us are very clear. It's either to reconcile the marriage, have a divorce, or get out of the way. But one way or another, we need to have that direction clarified before we should invest further in this facility. So I urge you to support this amendment and remove the $500,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the issue of management in the parking lot, I think that Dr. Ramos has indicated that those issues are inseparable, as has Supervisor Rowe. We do, in fact, have a fiduciary responsibility as county board supervisors. And one of the reasons I heard in support of Mr. Harris' veto of the sale of the building was $1 is not enough. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of Winnebago County. We can't sell it for $1. Is spending $500,000, which may or may not even be enough to cover the extent of the project, is that exhibiting fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Winnebago County? Will, in fact, after the parking lot's repaired and the infrastructure of the facility is repaired, will Winnebago County be responsible for subsidizing usership? Will we have to get into subsidizing who participates in the activities of Tri-County? In doing some research on this, I've found that just through the hockey organization, because they were the only organization that provided me numbers, 44% of that organization are non-residents of Winnebago County. I don't know about the other end of the usership from the other top users. They wouldn't provide me numbers. I don't know if it's fair to infer anything from the non-cooperation or not. I guess the last issue again is process. We may have an esteemed colleague of this board who finds that this process is acceptable, that a simple majority during this process is acceptable. I, however, do not. And based on that alone, I'd be voting no for this. Thank you.
Supervisor Engelbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to make a few comments. Point out that much to Supervisor Widener's dismay, we're not just talking about the parking lot. We're talking about a lot more issues than the parking lot. I represent a district in Menasha. Tri-County Ice Arena is important to our community. It provides a very nice recreational service to our citizens. We have people that are hockey players. We have a local school district that plays games there. We have ice skating figure skating program, so it's providing a recreational need in our area, and I think we ought to remember that. There are actually people in our county that use it and use it regularly. Having said that, I'm encouraged today by hearing some of the supervisors who've spoken repeatedly against this, saying that we need to determine the management of this before we do anything else. That I can agree with. If we, unlike Supervisor Warnke, I don't think we have any viable alternatives for managing this. I think it's questionable whether the current management has been doing enough. The only other group that I've become aware of is the Hockey Association, who's already complaining about paying too high of fees. If this thing isn't paying for itself and they're looking for a place to reduce their costs, I'm not sure how they can operate. However, I will share with you, as much as I've spoken in opposition to getting rid of it or not maintaining it, I did offer to the Hockey Association that if they would submit a 3-year budget to me telling me where they were going to get the revenues and what their projected expenses were, and also a 5-year capital plan telling me how they're going to purchase equipment and maintain the building, I would support them. I haven't got that as of today. So I really don't think that they ever were a viable candidate other than that, hey, if you give us the building for $1, we'll take it. I do like the idea and support the idea of putting out requests for proposals to see who may possibly manage this in the future. I would like to see a proposal that tells us how they're going to do that, how they expect to generate revenue, and I think we'd be in a better position to determine whether we should, if we're going to continue to own it and to lease it to somebody or strike an agreement with somebody in management, then I think we have the responsibility to fix the parking lot and maintain the building just like we do with all kinds of other recreational opportunities in the community. I would be supportive of following a request for proposal to see if we can get viable management for this place before we take this issue up. I do hope that some of the supervisors who have seemed to be totally against this, if we can find viable management for it, would reconsider supporting the infrastructure to maintain the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick things. Over the last 2 days, I've heard the word taxpayers. And it's amazing how we, as a county board, will talk about the taxpayers, about spending their money. But if we believe in it for ourselves, then it's all right. I think what the county exec did was the right thing to do by putting this on the way he did it. I mean, he could have came through the back door like other committees have done in the past. Instead of the total amount, we'll do it for half. And then over the next 2, 3, 4 years, we'll piecemeal it back to where we originally wanted it. Because they knew if they came in with the total amount right away, it wouldn't have passed. Some people, and I heard this also today, had their minds made up before they actually knew the facts, and that's true. I think that's kind of human nature in a way that you hear it, and right away you just don't want to pay close attention to what it truly is, what it can do for you. The big thing is the parking lot. The parking lot is a lot of money, but then again, the county exec could have came in and came in with $175,000. Piecemeal it. 1/3 this year, 1/3 next year, finish it out the following year. He came through the front door. I commend him for doing that. And as far as the deterioration of the parking lots, yes, the gentleman over here is right, Supervisor Rasmussen, but a lot of it had to happen with, a number of years back, they allowed fire trucks to go there and train on there. They're making sharp turns and hitting their brakes, and that was destroying it. And there's 2 firemen I have coffee with. That's why I know this. So I am for fixing the parking lot. Now, if people want to get a different management team, that's 2 completely separate subjects. I have a guy I have coffee with. He's does gun shows. His people stopped going to the ice arena because of the parking lot. And he said he knows of other people that have stopped going to the ice arena because of parking lots. It's a revenue. And it's also for Winnebago County. And if we're going to spend money for this for the citizens of Winnebago County, we can spend monies for that for Winnebago County and the citizens. So let's try to be even and honest on everything. Thank you.
Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing I'd like to bring up is $1. $1 was never my number. I'm sure it wasn't your number. I'm sure it wasn't his number or her number. Supervisor Warnke and I drafted a resolution to explore the divestiture and asked the county exec by last December to come back with us with options. He did that. To my surprise, and I'm sure to most of your surprise, he came back and the options, at least 1 and 2, or A and B, were to sell it for $1. It wasn't my number. I was rather shocked, to tell you the truth, that he came back and said, let's sell it for $1. So let's not say that it was Fox Valley Youth Hockey that came in here and lowballed us. The county executive is the one that set the price of $1. Be that as it may. I heard something about personal injuries. Wow. I have sat on Personnel and Finance Committee for the last 7 years, and we deal with those things as they come in, and I don't ever remember a personal injury from somebody falling into a gaping hole at the Tri-County recreational facility. Somebody said, we don't have any viable alternative to manage the facility. I would differ with that. First of all, when the county exec came back with options, and option B was to sell to a third party, the Fox Valley Youth Hockey Association did step up, presented an offer to purchase. It was put on the back desk of the county exec's desk, and nothing was done with it. Down the line, this board approved a counteroffer to that organization, and it passed, but it was vetoed. There are viable alternatives. If you don't like or want Fox Valley Youth Hockey, I don't care. But how many of you are aware that there is another entity that submitted an offer to purchase the Tri-County Association, Tri-County Recreation Arena? A second party, I saw one hand go up, a second party made an offer. Nothing ever happened with that. Did Supervisor Warnke and I draft another counteroffer and said, hey, let's do this again? Probably would have passed, probably would have got vetoed. We didn't bother doing that. That same party came back and made an offer to Winnebago County to share ownership 50-50. And we'll put some money into it. How many are aware of that? Nothing ever happened. One person said, yes, they're aware. So there are alternatives. Another alternative that we have learned about since we started talking about RFPs, there is an organization that runs 3, 4, 5 different ice rink facilities in northeast Wisconsin. That's what they do. They are interested in managing the Tri-County Ice Arena. Let's draft the RFP, find out who can manage the place, hopefully better, and go from there. One supervisor, who I believe is in favor of this, ended his comments by saying, vote no. I think you meant vote yes to delete it. So I am urging you all to vote yes. Thank you.
Supervisor Knitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard a number of comments here about other entities or groups coming forward supposedly coming forward. I have not seen nothing in paper. They've talked about this and that and whatever. I haven't seen anything. In the meantime, the facility being run pretty dang good. Could be better? Possibly yes. The county could step in there and maybe help. We certainly should not feel guilty throwing some dollars toward that building, which works to all different kinds of buildings in the county. The building is not in that bad a shape. I've been through it a number of times. I noticed some of the things that they're talking about. It's not a horror situation. Allegheny County backed out, so we're stuck with the parking lot by ourselves. That does happen. So we didn't do anything for a number of years, so we got a fat check bill right now. That's the way it happens sometimes. So fix the parking lot. Can we manage better or another way? Somebody else, possibly. But in the meantime, fix the parking lot just like you would do it for any other part of Expo Center or County Courthouse and go on from there. I'll be voting to pass for the repair of the parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, I'll just mention the fact I thought we were talking about the parking lot, but the people were not involved in this for the years that went over have to be completely confused about what's happening as far as offers. I learned a lot in the last 5 minutes. I did not realize that we had all of these offers. They never came up. And we got a lot of discussion here about the fact that we had this group and this group and this group. I don't remember that. And I do think I was at most of the county board meetings. So I'm just wondering if this is a fairy tale or do we really have something on paper that we should be looking at? And I'm really concerned about what's happening out there because we know there are some people that are trying to get rid of the ice arena and will use anything they can to do that. And some of the same people are going to be asking for funds to support their projects. And if we're going to do the county board, let's be fair across the board. Let's talk about airports. Let's talk about recreation. Let's talk about extensions. Let's talk about the fairs. Because we're all just getting very parochial, and I say all of us are very parochial. I'm for my project and, hell of your project. So let's start being more fair. Let's go ahead, let's pave the parking lot. If we got a whole bunch of people out that really want to do it, they're going to be happy to see that, and we'll be able to negotiate better on the fact we got a parking lot. So let's do that. Let's move on again, and let's get away from this parochialism and discussion of things that may or may not have happened. Thank you.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From testimony before the county board from the public, I think it's pretty clear that the Tri-County Ice Arena is a valuable resource to the community. There were scores of supporters and users that were right here at our public hearing who have one after another, whether they're a 40% user of the ice or they're the other 60% users of the ice, have told us that they appreciate what we do for them. There is a member of our county board, a gentleman who presented a history of public ice arenas and such facilities and demonstrated and explained and showed us that an ice arena is not the kind of forum that is typically a profitable venture. And as a consequence, it's left to nonprofits and to municipalities, such as the county, to pick up the slack and to provide support. We did this years ago in partnership with Outagamie County. Our county board in 2006 visited the facility. It voted overwhelmingly to appropriate money to repair the parking lot because the county board at the time believed that it needed to be done. We had a partner that was unwilling to chip in their half, and as a consequence, nothing was ever done. It was left to deteriorate some more. We've been told that there has not been any claims against the parking lot. That's not true. This board entertained a claim that was rejected, typically as we reject liability claims. It happened to have been an employee of the Neenah High School, either a coach or a teacher, who supervised students from that facility, from our county, at the facility. He put in a claim for being injured. He had a workman's compensation claim from his school, and it was passed on to the county. It's documented. It was voted on by this board. Clearly demonstrates there has been injuries, there has been claims, there has been concerns. We've been advised that there is some action in the wings that's going to find new management, attract new managers for the facility. Well, if we had a newly paved parking lot, I think that would be much more impressive to a potential manager of the facility to walk in and assume that responsibility. You know, if you're going to bring them to a parking lot that is a hazard, they're going to likely walk away. But if you bring them to a facility, if you really want to pursue these alternatives, I think it would be value added to have that property in as good a condition as you could. And that's the first step in preparing to go forward. For these reasons, I think it's worth our while to pursue an obligation that we have picked up in the past, that we've continued to the future, that we have heard from the public that this is a valuable facility, that they get good value from, that no one but a public entity such as ourselves would take the risk to invest money to provide that kind of recreation opportunity. And despite the numbers, 18 supervisors who have proposed to eliminate this sum from the budget, I ask you, think about the people who consider this a valuable resource. Think about your own arguments of attracting new managers. Repairing that parking lot is the first step to accomplishing what you want. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The discussion, as I've heard it so far, indicates to me pretty clearly that there is nothing even close to consensus among this board as to what ought to happen with the Tri-County Ice Arena. When we have no idea what we're going to do with it, it would seem to me not very wise to make an investment of $100,000 on the parking lot. I do think that at some point there ought to be a careful look at it when this board knows exactly what it wants to do and can agree upon it, what it wants to do with the Tri-County Ice Arena. That's the time to make a decision on the parking lot. The other item is we did hear testimony from this afternoon from a board member whose expertise I think is quite great on that subject, that $100,000 is not going to do a proper job on that. Or $500,000 is not going to do a proper job on that parking lot. I think that expert opinion ought to be considered. We're not talking about $500,000. We're talking about more. And if we do a $100,000 job now, we'll wish we had not. I urge you not to commit us now to fixing that parking lot at this time.
Supervisor Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. The only reason I asked to speak is because one of my fellow supervisors questioned the validity of the comments that I made about other potential interest. Another one asked if it was a fairy tale. I have here a copy, not from Fox Valley Youth Hockey Association, but a second buyer. I'm sorry, but if you didn't get a copy, the gentleman in the corner is who you can talk to. It was sent to him. This is the second offer. I then have an email from that second buyer that says, and it's dated August 12th of this year, you made it clear to me at the time back in May that it's not for sale and that without your support it would be extremely difficult to get the sale through the county board. With that being the case, would you consider selling half of the ownership interest to me? I think it would be a good compromise and help the facility get on track for long-term sustainability. The only reason I mention these two things is because someone asked if it was a fairy tale. Thank you.
Okay, I'll question the fairy tale. I mean, there's only been several little remarks back and forth towards supervisors, and I would hope that we keep all that out of our process here. So there was some made this morning, and yes, but I hope we keep all that stuff away from it. Supervisor Singstock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listening to all this discussion this afternoon has convinced me two things, I guess. Number one, I'm not convinced we're looking at the big picture. I think we're only seeing parts of it. I'm thoroughly convinced that there's no one member of this county board that knows everything about this issue. And what's compounding the problem is because this drags on, because nobody wants to take the bull by the horns and get answers. Rumors are starting, and people exaggerate things. And it's causing resentment and trouble among the board members. My thinking about this parking lot, in all honesty, because we own the building and the land, yes, at some point we are responsible to replace that parking lot. And I would vote for that, but I would not vote for it now. Because things have to get ironed out first. We got things at A, B, and C, and we're trying to deal with D. It kind of reminds me, because I always enjoyed history, Abraham Lincoln was quoted, "You do not change horses in the middle of a stream." And sometimes some organizations like to slowly get you into the stream. And then something happens and say, well, we can't back up now, we're too far along. We got to see more of the big picture. Now I will, maybe I'm going on a limb, but I'll do it. I, to a limited degree, can understand a little bit where the Tri-County Association is coming from. I don't want to repeat myself so nobody misunderstands me. I said to a limited degree. You take my house as an example. I have a roof on my house, and I put new shingles on it. And as all we know how tough Wisconsin weather can be. So over a period of time, some of my shingles blow off the roof. So either I got to get on there or pay someone to get up there and replace my shingles. Time goes on again. This happens again. The shingles fly off the roof. I got to have them replaced. To me, that's repair and maintenance. But no matter what, eventually, in the state of Wisconsin, that roof is going to go to HELL because of the weather conditions. So there's two different things between repair and maintenance and replacement. So I'll bend a little bit on that line. Unfortunately, this county board and county executive has been inherited, in my humble opinion, a problem that's created over the years. The previous county executives, the previous county boards, for whatever reason, in all their judgment, they just let this thing build up. And we're the ones that inherited it. So what I kind of would like to, what would be nice if we could take this money, set it aside somewhere, and work on some of these other issues, these operation issues. I heard, this is really ridiculous. I should talk to my grandson about it and see what his answer would be. I've heard talk that they want 3 different committees to run that place. They want the Tri-County Association to be running as part of it. They want the parks to run part of be control of the lease agreement. They want facilities and management to take care of the building. How could we ever even think of having 3 organizations, 3 committees run something? Now, if people agree with me on that, they think I'm right, then why don't we get 1 committee to do it? Why don't we do that? Why don't we, like they just say, why don't we try to get some other, either keep the present group in there, say to them, we'll give you another 2 years. Turn this thing around for us. If you can't turn it around for us in 2 years, we're going to get rid of you and you are going to be replaced. We haven't even thought about that. We haven't talked about it. Because we're all tied up about the parking lot. The wording of the lease. We got a 1-year lease until the end of June. But there's been debate on this county board about the wording of the lease. I have read of older lease. It's ridiculous. And I'll give you one example. Winnebago County may request a financial report. Why would we ever, if we're going to serve the taxpayers of Winnebago County, why would we ever have something where we may ask for a financial report? Would somebody answer that when I get done talking, please? That's an example. It's too passive. It's got to be stronger wording, and there has to be a group behind it to back it up. I heard some other rumors. If this would be, some people say, well, it should be under Parks and Recreation. I'm on Parks and Recreation, and I will admit, at one time I felt that. But after I thought about it rationally, that's not going to fly. And then what I hear, if it was put under Parks, there's talk about, well, how are we going to deal with the American Disabilities Act? If they come in there and they tear that building apart. Well, we got to think about that stuff. What about if it's going to be under Parks, according to this book of regulations here? Parks has to operate it. Well, if Parks is going to operate it, are we going to have some more county employees? So I could go on and on and on, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to look at the overall picture. We can't rush into this. I don't want to be misquoted. I'm not saying I'm against replacing the parking lot. All I'm saying, I'm against it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Rowe, I myself wasn't privy to that, what you stated. Is that the same gentleman that was at your facilities meeting beginning of this month? He had a suit on, dark hair. Yes?
Mr. Harris is saying yes.
Okay. He started out, if I recall right, that he wanted to buy the whole thing. Then all of a sudden he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. He wants to buy just half. And what was his price on this half?
Well, first of all, it wasn't him that decided to go in half. It was the county exec that decided. No, the county exec didn't agree to it. He knew that the county exec wasn't going to sell it to him, so he's the one that came back and proposed to buy half of it.
And what was his price?
$1.
Okay.
And there we are back to the $1. It's not my number.
We love that dollar, don't we?
Okay, there's no more lights. Quick. We'll vote. If you want to delete the $500,000, vote aye. If you don't, vote nay. That is passed. Okay, I've been asked that we take an honest 5-minute break, and that's all. And I just have one comment before we take that break. I'm responsible for some of the errors that happened in the very beginning of this ice arena. The executive had asked me to put I believe it was, I might be wrong, and I would give you permission to shake your head on this one. I believe it was the Ice Hockey League to make a presentation to this board for 2 different months, and I didn't have time. So I delayed some of that process in 2 months. So it wasn't all his fault. But I thought I had to say that because that's happened in the very beginning. I didn't think it was as big a deal as it is now. Okay, we are 5 minutes.
Streamed on the World Wide Web at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. Please stay tuned for continued coverage. For broadcast times of local government meetings, check our website at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. You're watching City Cable 10, your source for government programming in the Oshkosh area. Simulcast on 101.9 FM WOCT and streamed on the World Wide Web at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. Please stay tuned for continued coverage. For broadcast times of local government meetings, check our website at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. You're watching City Cable 10, your source for government programming in the Oshkosh area. Simulcast on 101.9 FM WOCT and streamed on the World Wide Web at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. Please stay tuned for continued coverage. For broadcast times of local government meetings, check our website at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. You're watching City Cable 10, your source for government programming in the Oshkosh area. Simulcast on 101.9 FM WOCT and streamed on the World Wide Web at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. Please stay tuned for continued coverage. For broadcast times of local government meetings, check our website at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. You're watching City Cable 10, your source for government programming in the Oshkosh area. Simulcast on 101.9 FM WOCT and streamed on the World Wide Web at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. Please stay tuned for continued coverage. For broadcast times of local government meetings, check our website at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. You're watching City Cable 10, your source for government programming in the Oshkosh area. Simulcast on 101.9 FM WOCT and streamed on the World Wide Web at OshkoshCommunityMedia.org. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. Please stay tuned for continued coverage. For broadcast times of local government meetings, check our website at oshkoshcommunitymedia.org. You're watching City Cable 10, your source for government programming in the Oshkosh area. Simulcast on 101.9 FM WOCT and streamed on the World Wide Web at oshkoshcommunitymedia.org.
Amendment 227, or amendment number
The
11.
Winnebago County.
Delete $35,000 from salary contingency fund. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for Resolution 227-102013 with one correction. It's not page 553 on line 13. It's page 552.
I'll second for discussion purposes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Can I speak for a second
Sure.
on the resolution?
Please.
In regards to these two contingency funds, it's come to my attention that over the course of the last several budget debates that there is a lot of money in these two accounts, and it very rarely, if ever, gets spent. And it's my understanding that when this money does not get spent, it typically just rolls over into the general fund. In regards to the 2013 actual, and I asked our accountant at the beginning of these proceedings to give me the balances in these funds for 2013 recap. To my surprise, the reserve contingency of $300,000 was spent. And I think that's probably the first time in several years that it's been spent before the end of the year. However, the salary contingency fund, which is line 59503, beginning balance of $350,000, there's only been $12,615 spent against that contingency for this calendar year. Now, again, it's my understanding that the balance, whatever that balance is at the end of the calendar year, will just be folded into the general fund. And I asked for the entire balance last year. I asked through an amendment to get both of these contingency funds deleted from the budget. This year, I'm only asking for $325,000, which for 2013 would have even left a balance. So I'm hoping that the rest of the board will see, and if Chuck wants to provide a history of the last 3 or 5 years and how much money has been in those two contingencies and how much that money has rolled into the general fund, that's great if anybody wants to ask him that, but I urge your support in protecting, let's protect the taxpayers against that happening again. Thank you.
Chuck, do you want to explain this question?
Well, I don't have at my fingertips the history for several years. I might be able to find it if I had some time. But, you know, we've always budgeted a little bit of extra, these two accounts, to have funds available during the year if something unexpected comes up, whether it's needing additional money for payroll or the other one is for other expenses. That one we almost always use up. The payroll one, there's probably more often than not, some of it reverts back to the general fund at the end of the year. But we've always budgeted these as just a way to make sure that we had some funds available if we needed them during the year. It could be a special pay adjustment for someone in order to retain people or whatever. So that's why we've done it that way.
In regards to overtime from different departments, I think we heard specifically, I recall from two department heads, Sheriff Mott's being one. They had a tremendous amount of overtime in their detective field. I want to say it was 138 some odd thousand. So what I'm seeing is that there are departments that budget for overtime. And that specifically being the case, if the departments are budgeting for overtime and are budgeting for a rainy day, so to speak, why then do we have this, to me, to be an excessive amount of money in the salary contingency fund? Thank you.
I have a question, Chuck. In our little handout that you handed out, originally it was somebody from Information Systems got a, why wasn't that money taken out of there rather than went on ahead? I don't know, I got such a mess up here of papers, but on
the one that
was $5,100 added. Why wasn't that taken out of this fund like what he's talking about? Why did we add it to this year's budget book?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
The one for the Planning and Zoning Office, there was an individual that there was $5,100. Why wouldn't we have just taken it out of?
Well, we did for this year, but we did for this year. They had enough. We did have sufficient funds this year to cover that. I don't recall why it wasn't taken out of the salary contingency fund. Okay. It might be that they found other places in their budget where they had enough savings to cover it. But for next year, it's not in there. Because for the 2014 budget, they didn't have that information when the 2014 budget was done. That pay adjustment for that person came afterwards. That's why it had to be an adjustment to the executive budget to add that.
Supervisor Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the board, I guess this question would be for Chuck. If the board, in its infinite wisdom, were to delete this $325,000, and it appears that the reduction would be applied to the tax levy, I'm not quite sure that would be in our best interest going forward. What are the implications of having a reduction of $325,000 to the tax levy?
Well, that would reduce our base next year in terms of determining how much we have available. I mean, basically, the levy or the allowable levy for next year is based on the allowable levy or the actual levy for this year plus net increase for net new construction. So it would reduce that.
Is there another place that this money could go that would be better, or is that not allowed?
You could put it in the capital project fund, and then that money would be available next year to reduce the borrowing for new projects. And it would keep the tax levy this year at the current amount, and therefore we would have that balance as our starting point next year, rather than reducing it.
Debt service?
So you could put it in the capital project fund.
With that said, Mr. Chairman, I would like to strike reduction to the tax levy and change that to the capital projects. Was that correct?
Yeah, you would say increase to the capital project fund.
Increase to the project capital projects fund.
Then moved and seconded. Supervisor Fari on the amendment?
No, sir.
Supervisor Smith on the amendment? No. Well, wouldn't that, then we're just putting it there, we're going to bond for $325?
No, we put that would be $325 less that we would have to bond next year for capital projects that are approved.
Oh, okay.
It would reduce the borrowing, which reduces our debt service for 10 years.
It wasn't my intention, but I think I just earned points with Miss Supervisor Thompson.
Okay, clerk, would you read it back to us? The clerk's going to read back what we're voting on. Just a minute. Supervisor Eisen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we make this change, would the money be available for the purposes of what it was set aside in the contingency fund? Would we be able to access those dollars out of the capital projects fund to fill any need for overtime or for other salary contingencies?
Well, that would be a budget transfer that would have to occur during the year. Yes, you could. You could transfer it back, or
So
you could
whether
transfer
it's
from
whether
somewhere
it's in
else.
the contingency fund or whether it's in the capital projects fund, we can access it, except that we probably need a 2/3 majority to get it out of there?
Yes.
Okay, and then it really doesn't hurt whether it's in one fund or the other. It'll probably get the same interest.
Okay, the clerk will read it back.
Supervisor Brennan's amendment was to line 16. Expense reduction shall be offset by an increase to the capital project fund.
Okay, we'll have we'll vote by our little iPad on the amendment. There were two people that said that they didn't want to talk on the amendment. So.
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have you punched out. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the amendment, the objective of doing this is to decrease the levy. It is to decrease taxes. When people ask me, do you not understand the ramifications of doing that? I say yes. It means that you can't spend as much next year either. That's the goal. This is money that does not get spent. It just sits in the county budget and rolls over to the general fund and gets spent on something else. That to me not only is bad government, but it lends to the perception of the public and why they do not trust government. The idea here is in fact to cut taxes. If we're not spending this, it seems to me to be against who we're representing to put it in the budget. When lunch got over the other day, there was a group of students in here with people from the VFW. One of the reasons why I'm here is because of what one of the gentlemen said when he got on the elevator, one of our veterans. I shook their hands as they got on the elevator, each and every one of them, and he said to me, when you're going through this process, remember whose money you're spending. Thank you.
Supervisor Widener.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This probably won't happen very often, but I do agree with Supervisor Haig. The purpose of this... The purpose of his amendment is to reduce the taxes. And so we can either vote yes or no on that, but to go around and move it from some other place to some other place, it's just avoiding the vote, which we are very good at. But I think we either vote up or down on the basis of we do or do not want to reduce the taxes. I'm completely against the amendment. I know what Supervisor Brennan was trying to do, but that's not the purpose of this. And we just got to either say, what is the purpose of what we're doing on these amendments? We keep getting off on the tangents, and we need to quit doing that, guys and girls. Thank you.
Did you want to talk again? No. Okay, we'll vote by our little iPad. Pardon? Well, I think, okay, on the amendment, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Aye. We'll vote by our iPad. Should I just say that?
Yeah, that would be a lot easier.
I'll give you a minute. We'll give the clerk a minute to bring it on there.
think I have to type it all in.
Okay, I think the nays had it, but
Hold on.
I guess she's almost has it.
Okay. They can go ahead and vote now.
Are we doing the amendment?
You're doing an amendment.
Larry's got a vote. Larry Smith's got a vote. Larry Smith has to vote.
Larry Smith? The amendment has failed.
That was Pat's.
No, the amendment is passed.
This is Pat's amendment to the amendment. So now you're back to.
Now we're back.
Brennan's amendment,
Right.
so that failed.
Yeah, that failed.
Now we're back
So
to
now you're
the
back to amendment.
Brennan's amendment. Okay. Okay, I have to ask the other Supervisor Farley and Supervisor Smith on Brennan's amendment.
No, that one just voted on. This was Pat's amendment. That's all.
On the total.
On Hague's.
On Hague's, okay. Okay. Okay, so we're back on the original amendment. Supervisor Farley.
Thank you. My question is to Mr. Orenstein. Would I be correct in stating that if this fund was not available and we needed additional monies to cover salary issues, that we could take that money from the undesignated fund balance? So we've really got, I won't call the fund balance a slush fund because that would be improper, but there are other ones that appear to be more flexible. So that is what I needed to know. We always have the money available through a different fund. Thank you.
Supervisor Smith.
This is one of those, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of those times when I have to agree with Mr. Hague. We are here representing the people. We have an opportunity to reduce our taxes by voting unnecessary fund balances down. And in this case, that adding more to it, as we've learned from our friends in Washington, the more money you got, the more you spend. And we need less money to spend. And I remember Governor Lee Sherman Dreyfus saying is, if you don't feed the animal of government, he starves to death.
Supervisor Thompson.
Thank you. Excuse me. By defeating the amendment, we threw away a wonderful opportunity to reduce our indebtedness. Now, reducing indebtedness, I think most of you would agree, is just as laudable as reducing taxes. Because in the long run, reducing indebtedness does reduce taxes. Well, that's no longer on the table because of the defeat of the amendment. I urge you strongly to defeat this motion because we may very well need next year to be able to fund the things that we have to fund. We know that, or at least we suspect that our health insurance is going to go way, way up. And if we pass this motion now, we reduce our ability to fund our programs and to fund our debt. I urge you strongly to defeat this motion.
Okay, there are no more questions. We'll
That is passed. Amendment number 12, add $75,000 to the Facilities and Property Management Department's Capital Improvements account to fund raising the Huber Center building and relocate the computer hub. Supervisor Haig.
I move for Resolution 227-102013.
Been moved and seconded. You want to talk on it, or does anybody want to?
I would say, Mr. Chairman, that these are very rough numbers, have not been through a planner. I did discuss this briefly with Mr. Elder and with Patty Francoeur. The idea came originally from Supervisor Gebert when we were talking about the Huber facility earlier. Every once in a while, that facility comes up, and it just seems to be such an albatross or a white elephant or whatever you want to call it. And it is somewhat of a parasite. I know that somebody could probably provide us with figures as to what amount of money that thing sucks out of our budget on an annual basis. And I'm just hoping that we can do something with that. This may or may not be the answer. I'll be supporting it. I think it's a good idea, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will take an opposing point of view. I think this is a very bad idea. As you know, and I understand the frustration with this building and the vacancy of it, and it goes on, and one excuse after another why we can't do something with it. I will suggest that this initiative will probably prompt some decision to be made in the future with that building. But I would ask you to leave that up to the Facilities Department and Committee to address this sometime during this year, and hopefully we can come up with some conclusions working with the Sheriff's Department and their committee. To pass this and say, well, let's tear it down out of frustration is not a correct pursuit for this county board. So I would ask you to vote no on this one, please.
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chuck and I, we didn't talk about this, but I had the same feelings and same ideas. It's hard to vote on something, as we've been going through this whole day, not really knowing a true figure. I mean, I got down 75,000. Now what happens if it ends up being 175,000? You know, I would rather see it going back to committee, take your time, come up with a legitimate thing, then go from there, because I can't support it the way it is. If we had more information, that'd be one thing. I know I've been sitting watching it for many years myself, but I'm not going to spend money that I don't know what I don't have. So, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that this has got merit in the long run, but I think it needs to follow a logical process, not a knee-jerk reaction. I would like to see the Facilities Committee examine this in great detail. I think the Judiciary Committee right now has already talked about discussing this. I know in talking with some of the department heads, there are various possible uses for that facility. Right now, there's nothing on paper. There's nothing for sure. But I think we could use some extra time to study the options. That building is a bone of contention. I know with some people. I wasn't here when it was built, but that's not the point. But so I would vote definitely no on this, and I would tell us to remember when we were kids, we need to refrain and not huff and puff and blow the house down.
Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Huber Center facility is a valuable resource. The change in technology has caused it to become somewhat excess property, but it does await opportunity. There are changes at the county level, also at the state level. From my involvement and participation with the Wisconsin Counties Association Steering Committee for Public Safety, and with my participation with the NACO Steering Committee for Public Safety, there is a trend away from incarceration, a trend advocating the attitudes of treatment, alternatives to incarceration, and diversion from prosecution. There is a symposium set up by the National Institute of Corrections after the first of the year to give the states an opportunity to be held in Madison. There'll be 3 states, basically, Oregon, Colorado, and Wisconsin. We get an opportunity to present a program statewide that will be a model for the whole country. It is possible, if Wisconsin gets the nod for that pilot project. And I'll just complete my my sentence and suggest that
Mr. Haig just pulled his added amendment. I mean, he can pull it, right, Mr. Bodner, because he was adding money. He wasn't deleting it. Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you. A point of order, and thanks to some fellow supervisors. Unfortunately, I spent way too much time reading Robert's Rules of Order, but it's my understanding that once a motion hits the floor and has been seconded, it no longer belongs to that supervisor. It belongs to the floor, and therefore he can't retract it.
Can I just have a point of order on the discussion then?
Just hang on a minute.
Robert's Rules of Order is usurped by your own board rules. Robert's Rules of Order doesn't control your own board rules control.
Which board rule are you referring to?
Well, I don't know. You were the one that brought up Robert's Rules of Order, but it's my understanding that, and I'll check it here, but a person who brings a motion or has the right to withdraw that, and if you give me time, I'll find that.
21 point something. We're looking up a rule.
He's looking up a rule, and I'll have him give the answer in the mic.
Right here, 8.8. Any item on the agenda for consideration by the board may be withdrawn at any time before action is taken on it, but only by its sponsor or if sponsored by a committee, the committee chair, or a designated alternate in his or her absence.
Thank you.
So just keep in mind, Robert's Rules of Order is subsidiary to your own board rules. All right?
I'll quit reading.
Amendment 14, delete $93,000 from the Parks Department budget.
13.
Oh. Amendment 13, add $5,000 to Facilities and Property Management Department's budget to facilitate a study as to building ownership and management. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for 227-102013.
Second for discussion.
Been moved and seconded.
The purpose of this amendment is to simply clarify that which is currently unclear to anybody. And I believe at this point in time, including our county executive, we need to know what we have, where it is, who operates it, who keeps an inventory of it, et cetera, et cetera. We have no idea, and we cannot get our arms around it, and I'm hoping that, I don't know that it'll cost $5,000, but I just wanted to put a dollar figure on it, and I'm hoping that Mr. Elder could facilitate this analysis and provide information to this board so we would know what we're doing with our buildings. Thank you.
Can I add a comment? I just think that also that it should be that what departments he's responsible for. Is he, as the facilities director, is he responsible for all departments in Winnebago County or all facilities? You know what I mean? I would think that Winnebago County would know what buildings they own, but I think that you have a good point there, but as this is brought forward, I think there has to be the other discussions made as this progresses. Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll address the question probably to Mr. Elder, I would think, who's in the back.
Yes.
If this is approved, what avenue would you use to accommodate the requirement? Would you hire somebody, or how would you do this? What method would be used? Well, that's kind of been an issue.
Well, I'll be totally honest. This is really about the first I've kind of heard of the details, so I don't have a plan. I would probably have to talk to the county executive and the facilities committee to see exactly what the goals would be for this. And then we'd have to decide whether it's something we can do in-house or contract out for it.
Is 5,000 a reasonable number then? You don't know that?
I don't know that either.
Yeah, we wouldn't know that either, yeah. But I do recognize this has come up in committee. There are issues. We've discussed that. There's some assumptions as to who has what responsibility. Your county book indicates that it's a responsibility of facilities, but there are ordinances that have been passed by the county board that puts that authority into a different department or committee. So I guess there is some merit to getting to the bottom of this, and that's your request, right? To find out who's responsible for what building, what set of buildings, etc. Now, I assume you're asking the question of not only operation, but maintenance of the buildings.
I may be a little too simplistic with this comment, but I'm going to take some background from my former corporate life and simply say that if something like this was ever presented to our committees where I worked, we'd have a officer of the company send a memo out to everybody who is related or affiliated with any type of property requirement to do a running inventory and have it spelled out specifically what you're looking for and what your results are going to be and how you're going to use that information. I don't think we need to spend anything on this. I think this is just something that can, unless I don't understand how the county government works, I just think this is something that can be done by each department head. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, again, I find myself trouble because I'm agreeing with Mr. Haig but I think it's just a terrific idea. I've asked for this for over the years, and it's my fault I didn't press it. And that was just to have a big wall with pictures of the various buildings, just so when we're talking about, something we can visualize. I'm a visual learner. I have to see it. And I think that we could all have a test of county buildings that we talk about here, like a scavenger hunt. And I would be very willing to bet that there'd be some people that couldn't find certain buildings. We all know where the jail is. Some of you rather, from inside, others from outside. But do you know, we talk about the Butler building. Do you know where that is? Do you know where the pheasant pens are, where we raise baby pheasants to be released to be shot by those cruel hunters? Do you know where there's an historical old barn? It could be on the National Registry if it's pursued. But I think, again, taking pictures is a simple project that could be done by an intern or someone. There's got to be a way. So, I'm not sure the money is, I have no idea what it would cost, but I think it'd be a worthwhile start.
Thank you. I think from the comments I've heard, we're all in agreement as to this really needs to be done. It's just a question of how we're going to execute it. And so I ask, is this something that the county, I don't know who can answer this for me, but is this something that the county can do internally? Do we have to go out and spend $5,000 to do it?
I would think that they should be able to do it internally.
Right.
I was trying to tell them, take the 5,000 out, but I would think that it could be done internally. I think it's a great idea, but that's what the executive's here for. Give him the direction of what you want to see done.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to amend Mr. Haig's amendment to delete the $5,000 study and that request facilities take an inventory.
Yeah, it's not really an amendment.
Modify his goals.
Let me just bring this point up to you. The resolution that you have before you that was on the agenda that you got last week is an amendment to pass the budget. And Mr. Haig brought a resolution in to add $5,000 to the budget for this purpose. But basically, your amendments to the budget have to be with regard to either adding or deleting money to the budget.
That's right.
If you're going to pass a resolution that has a separate purpose from that has to be brought in and noticed at another meeting. I mean, if you want to add $5,000 or $1 for this purpose, you can do that. But if you want to set policy, that's got to be a separate resolution. Well, you can do that, or you can Mr. Haig could bring a resolution in next month to the regular board meeting asking that an inventory be done. I don't think it's going to be that hard to do, although I think a lot of you folks are thinking more in terms of big buildings like the jail or Parks Department or other things, and I don't think you realize that there are a lot of fluid movements with regard to buildings that the county owns, especially in the Treasurer's office, where we're constantly taking and selling properties for back taxes that are houses or property. And then I think the other thing you need to do, or I would suggest, is you indicate whether you want to basically center this just on improvements to property, buildings, or it should include land too, because land is a different thing. We own a lot of land for different reasons, but the buildings, land with improvements are there's a lot less of those. But again, the budget resolution is to pass the budget and that's basically your appropriation for the year. And to add things that aren't related to that shouldn't be on there. Okay? Thank you. So I don't know what Mr. Hager wants to do with his resolution. Or Mr. Smith
Well,
wants to do.
Mr. Smith, your resolution, he's answering your questions now. So are you done, or what?
Okay, what I would be doing is then is pulling my amendment to resolution, and I would vote no so that can be brought forward in its proper form at another time.
Supervisor Haig.
I'll withdraw the amendment.
Okay.
Do this too?
Hmm?
Do this?
I wouldn't want to withdraw. That's right.
Well, he sits there and speak talks for 5 minutes.
Yeah, well,
Amendment 14, delete $93,000 from Parks Department budget and capital outlay accounts. Supervisor Wernke.
I ask for your approval of 227-102013, Amendment 14.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Supervisor Farley.
I'm sorry, sir, I hadn't pushed my button on this one.
Supervisor Eisen.
That's left over from the last,
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I was quite surprised over this one. Rob was here yesterday. If you had a problem with our budget, why did you not talk to Rob when he was here for questioning? I mean, the stuff he's got here, we got to use to make the parks operate. I mean, unless you don't want us to do our jobs fully, I mean, the choice is yours. But we need the stuff here, the brush chipper, the mower. I mean, what do you want us to do? Not do the jobs fully, or what?
Well, the way I feel about this thing is that we have given the Parks Department a tremendous amount of money this year. It was like $2,094,630. We gave you $186,000 for a pickleball court. We need, I think that, and we also had a program in there that we're going to grow prairie grass, and we're going to do less cutting. So what I'm asking is that you delay some of this equipment purchases to maybe even things out a little bit. I understand the problem with equipment. We certainly have gone through that gambit on the airport. But all I'm saying is maybe we could hold off on this equipment purchase for another year, maybe two, whatever. Or do it a little bit at a time.
Supervisor Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just looking for an explanation for the amendment which Supervisor Warnke provided. Thank you.
Okay, vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. It was Susan Luck. The resolution has failed. Amendment 15, delete two new staff positions from Child Support Agency, budget resulting in reduction to net levy of $16,270. Supervisor Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, we're not talking about huge dollars here. I'm sorry. I would move for the approval of Amendment 15 on Resolution Number 227-102-013.
Been moved and seconded.
And as I started to say, We're not talking about huge dollars. I guess it's more procedure than anything else. I first learned of this proposal 10 days, 2 weeks ago, when the director came to the Judiciary Public Safety meeting and presented her budget. I asked a number of questions then. I asked similar questions today. My concern is if we have 2 new positions, and they're, at least one of them is unique, do we have job descriptions? Has anybody seen these job descriptions? Do they make sense? I haven't seen any of it, so I'm very concerned. Might be needed, but I certainly don't have enough information to make an informed decision at this point. Thank you.
Would you want to answer his questions about job descriptions?
Well, the position for assistant attorney, we do have job descriptions for counsel, for county work, and the clerk is just an additional to someone we already have in our office. So there is a job description for that as well.
There is a job description for the new attorney?
Yes, we would draft that with help from other counties.
We would draft that. That means there isn't one, but
We have a base one, yes, for corporation counsel.
thank you.
Can I also state that there would be no impact on the levy at all? I wanted to show you, during the lunch break, I did hand out preliminary allocations from 2011 for our incentive funding from the state and federal government. If you look at the second line on Winnebago County, at the time that I drafted those requests for those 2 positions, I had no guarantee or even information on what our funding would be. When I prepared my budget, the state did grant us $8.5 million, which was fully funded, as it was in 2011, without restriction, which allows us to, in addition to our 66% that's reimbursed for our administrative costs, $949,000 is available to our office, but it has to be used in the child support agency. So these 2 positions would be fully funded.
Okay. Okay, there are no other questions. Vote aye or yes or A and nay if you support it. Vote A. If you don't, vote nay. That has failed. Okay, Mr. Ornstein, would you explain what we did?
Most of the amendments had no impact on the tax levy. Only 2 of them did, and that would be number 7, which reduced it by $5,200, or wait a second, which increased it by $5,200, and number 11, which decreased it by $325,000. So in the end, you're $348,982 under the levy limit. And the actual levy for the year will then be $64,786,199. $348,982 in the right column up there. Oh, it's kind of.
Supervisor Farley.
Is it appropriate to move to adopt the budget as amended?
Yes, I was going to call on Mr. Roll. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the budget. We'll vote by machine. Vote aye if you say yes, no if you say no.
That is passed.
Yes, okay.
I have a question for the clerk. So if I voted wrong here, before I could change it on our old system, can I change it on here before you calculate it?
I don't think so. I think I
I mean, that's what I did when I had voted wrong. I didn't change it because it passed, but I tried to change it. Once you put it in, you can't. Once you put it in here and try to change it with the clerk, different people have done that today, including me. You have to tell the clerk, or make sure you tell her that you voted,
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we adjourn until November 12th, that's on a Tuesday. At
Second.
6 p.m.
We are adjourned.